Welcome to the Abundant Vision Fundraising Podcast. Whether you are a seasoned professional or a first-time fundraiser, we have the advice you need to take your next step toward major gift mastery. I'm your host, Tom Dauber, President of Abundant Vision Philanthropic Consulting. Welcome back. So when we started this series, the plan was to release it as a 3-part conversation. But after we wrapped that final segment, we ended up having a full Q&A session with my co-host that was too practical and too helpful to leave on the cutting room floor. So today's episode is a bonus section. You will hear real questions, real scenarios, and some deeper explanation of the concepts we covered in the first 3 parts. If you found yourself wanting more specifics or wondering how these ideas play out in real situations, this session will fill in those gaps. Let's jump into the Q&A.
Thank you, Tom. We've got a few questions here. I'm going to go over the first one. You mentioned early in your presentation asking donors the right questions to be able to distinguish between whether or not they're interested in donating and how much. And do you have some examples you could share of, some of these types of questions?
Certainly, Thomas. That's a great question. I'm a big fan of pre-soliciting. Before I do a major gift ask, I would love to have a separate meeting to inform the donor of what we're doing, cast some vision around our work, and then actually ask them for their blessing and permission to have a gift conversation. I think back to my days at the dental school. I think one of our favorite comments was, "Hey, we're not asking you for a gift today, but we'd love to start a conversation with you to see if there might be something within our mission that aligns with your passions and can help you accomplish your philanthropic goals. Would you be willing to start that conversation with me?" Anything like that. It's always important in those types of questions, because they're going to be different for every donor and probably every nonprofit, to always be very hypothetical. People aren't afraid of hypotheticals. People are afraid of distinct, clear questions that demand a decision right now. So another question you could ask them is, Thomas, are you the sort of person we should be thinking about for a gift like this? Or, Thomas, I know you care a lot about our organization because of your years volunteering with us. We often find that people who give their time also really want to give their money if they can. Would you be open to exploring what that could look like? It's all gauging openness and just asking for permission to explore before getting to the ask. It's critical. And I learned this at an AFP conference at a course on negotiation. And it's so important that you never surprise your donors. They should always know what they're getting into when you meet with them. We never want to bait and switch them with anything.
Very good. Thank you, Tom. Got a couple of questions here on the, you mentioned a 1-page brief. And some particular sentences that should be included in the 1-page brief. Do you have anything there that you could share to allow some of our participants to maybe take a couple of notes?
Well, you're talking about in terms of, oh yeah, exactly. So that was, the 1 sentence of purpose that names the human outcome, the 3 sentences that describe the future you're building, the 1 sentence that connects vision to a first milestone, 1 sentence that states the funding required for that milestone and the time horizon, 1 sentence that invites partnership. And so I don't have a specific one that I give to people. It's going to be different for every organization. But if you just think about, if let's say you're trying to feed folks that don't have food in your community, your sentence of purpose, really you should have that already, right? Because every organization should have a vision statement and a mission statement. And so it's taking that and crafting it around and putting it in narrative or sentence form, right? And then when we're thinking about the future that we want to build, again, it's not about funding the gap. It's not about, I want to make sure that we have enough money to meet our goals this year. It's, what would the world look like if there was no hunger? And 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 it's not just that. It's so crucial that we go further down that list. Like now, I'm not an expert on food insecurity or its social impact. So for those of you in the crowd that are, please forgive me. But I'm betting that if we could end world hunger, we'd probably see grades in school go up, right? And so if grades in school go up, well, what's that going to do for our communities? Is there going to be less poverty? Is there going to be less unemployment? What's the big picture there? Are people going to parent better when they're not worrying whether or not their children can eat? I'm sure they are. So whatever those downstream implications are, we're talking about painting with color. Include that stuff, not necessarily as promises you can make, but just a bold picture of what the future could make if you could really change those things. But it's crucial though that you not just talk about this idea, the one sentence that connects vision to a first milestone, and it could be 2 or 3 milestones, right? You gotta show, especially business people that have some understanding of how do you execute a business plan? You've got to show them what to do to get there. I can think of one situation where I inherited a campaign and they had this bold dream for something that would do really incredible things. And no one was giving to it. And when I started to meet with our leaders who were in charge of that portion of the thing, I discovered there was actually no plan at all as to how they would do it, or if they got the $8 million they wanted, like how would they even spend it? They didn't know. That isn't the way to win credibility. And so you've got to actually spend some time, and hopefully you've got some people on your board, if not you personally, that knows a little bit about business planning. You don't have to do something that's so good that you could take it to a bank to get a loan, but just something like a 1-pager or 2-pager that really demonstrates to a donor that you've really thought through how to get to this vision in a way that's believable. And then, of course, you want to be able to say too, on this fourth point about the time horizon, you've got to know, when do you need the funding by? It may cost you $600,000 to reach this goal, but if you only need $50,000 in that first year, be able to communicate that, because what you don't want to do is accept a $600,000 gift from a donor, and then 2 years later, you still haven't spent all of it, and they're sitting around wondering what the impact is. So you want to clearly communicate all that up front. And then that last sentence, it's the sort of thing we talked about, earlier in terms of, would you be open to partnering with us? Would you be willing to make an investment here? And there's 2 different things. Like if this is a pre-solicitation conversation, one where you're not making the ask directly, maybe it's someone you don't know as well, it's inviting them into a conversation that may lead to a gift. But if it's like your board chair and they're on board and they know you want to ask them for a gift, then it's, yeah, could you see yourself making a 6-figure investment here? And then have some things and make it a conversation, right? You want to have some thoughts in your head about, well, a 6-figure gift could be, $999,000. It could be $500,000. It could be $100,000. Have some backups in your mind. Go for the biggest one that you think is not reasonable. I always recommend people soliciting gifts that are twice as big as they expect, because you just never know when that works out for you. And I've never had anyone get mad at me for asking them for a little bit too much. But you need to have that sentence at the end. And if it is a direct ask, you need to be direct. I think a real problem that some well-meaning fundraisers have is they just they're like, well, give this some consideration, think about it and whatever feels right to you, right? And that's okay. But there's a lot of people out there that if you really tell them what you need and what you're hoping they'll give, you don't want it to be demanding. You don't want to say, Thomas, I really need you and expect you to give $500,000. It would be, Thomas, we would love it if you could consider giving us $500,000. Feels very different. One is demanding, one is expressing what we hope could be the case, and giving, but still giving them some idea about what that number is and the type of impact that could make.
Thank you. That's very, very helpful there, Tom.
Mhm.
I got another one here, or it's related to identifying potential major donors.
Sure.
So, for a small nonprofit, do you have any tools or platforms that you could recommend that could be utilized to identify potential major donors?
Well, sure. There's platforms like Donor Search and iWave that are super helpful. Certainly, there's some great consultants out there that have their own um, subscriptions to those things that could do that for you if you don't have the human resource to maybe manage all that. Um, you know, and they're easy to find out there. I won't throw any specific links out right now in terms of individuals. I want to be fair to everybody. But yeah, there's definitely ways to do that. Just a general rule of thumb, and unfortunately, I don't have evidence-based research to back this up with, but I 30 years of experience and talking to other people. We all seem to agree on this. If you've got 1,000 constituents, probably, you can usually count 10%, about 100 of them are going to have major gift capacity. And you could probably count on 5% of those have an even greater, maybe mega donor ability. Now that's going to vary from organization to organization. It's not always going to be true, but generally speaking, those people are out there. And if you were to go and get a screening, it might cost you $5,000, to screen your constituents, but that would begin to give you some inkling of who are the people that have money. I mean, they're not 100% accurate. They miss a lot of things, but they can still be very helpful as you're searching for donors. And beyond that, though, the best thing is to start asking. Ask your board. You should all have boards that care about your organization, and hopefully you've got some people of means on your boards that care about what you're doing, and just start networking. Find out who those people are that care about those things.
Really good. You mentioned really utilizing your board. Here's a question for you. What's one thing in your mind that CEOs and boards often misunderstand about their role in major gift fundraising?
Hmm. Well, I think sometimes they underestimate how much their presence matters. I can think of one CEO, and we'll keep everybody anonymous here, who hired a chief development officer, and this CEO is so charismatic and so well loved. I can't think of a person that of means that knows that person that would say no to him. But to my knowledge, he's not been involved in any major gift solicitations. He's been leaving it to his chief development officer, because in his mind he's thinking, oh, this is their job, and so he hasn't gone on any asks, hasn't asked any. And I'm telling you, this guy's the real deal in terms of charisma and vision. Um, and I not every CEO is that, but like I was saying earlier, they embody the mission, and they're the one that can say to a donor, this will happen, with credibility. um, I don't want to in any way downplay the importance of development officers like myself. Like, we can do that work with credibility, um, but there's always a little bit of skepticism, I think, from donors, or there can be, because they look at us as like, well, you're getting paid to be here and ask me this, right? It's not necessarily because you're sold out to the vision, or your life is committed, to this work. Um, and so, as much as we can do the job for the big asks, I would always want to have the CEO in there, um, just because there's just a presence there that can't be replaced by a development officer.
Got a comment here from one of our participants. It's very, very good statement, very good thoughts here. But here's the comment. My thought is I'm not really soliciting funds. Instead, I'm sharing my journey journey and asking the donors if they would like to come along and help us get to the vision.
Mhm.
The trick at my current organization is helping to lay the land for the bigger ask, as historically smaller donations were the big ask. Um, any thoughts on that?
Well, I don't know your context. I don't know your organization, so it's hard for me to speak specifically. But my gut is for the average nonprofit, what you're talking about, casting a vision, inviting people to partnership, that's certainly you're going the right direction. But I would say you're stopping short. Um, if someone says yes, yes, I love your vision, I want to be a part of this. If you go one step further, and this takes some courage, it's the next question is, well, what might that look like to you? What would you have in mind? And really get them to start talking about what they might want to give. Furthermore, I would say you might even want to have some numbers in mind. You do you, my question to this person, if I were their coach, would be, well, how much does the whole vision cost? Like, is this a $10 million vision? If it is, I would be completely unashamed to say, hey, we've got a $10 million vision that's going to result in this transformative vision for this community or this set of people or in this specific situation. Uh, we need people that can really step up and do 6-figure, 7-figure gifts. We need people that can do 5-figure, 6-figure gifts or even 4-figure gifts, whatever those numbers are, they scale, for your organization. Could you see yourself making a significant, even sacrificial gift to help make this dream a reality and really try to get to a specific number? Because if you don't do that, the likelihood is that the person probably isn't going to give you as much as they might if you directly asked.
Okay, well, very good. Maybe I have one final question here. So just to capstone this, but you've helped a lot of leaders overcome fear in fundraising. What would you say is the most common barrier that you see,
Mhm.
and how do you coach these leaders through that barrier?
It's projection. We all project our own assumptions and expectations about money, and philanthropy and generosity on everybody else. That's why if you're talking to a person who is not inherently grateful, um, and there's actually been some evidence-based research that shows like 40-50% of people have an inherent leaning towards gratitude. A research institution out in California, I think at Berkeley, did the research on that. And there's also other research that's not been connected to that, but it should be, that talks about gratitude being an indicator of giving, of propensity to give. If you talk to someone who's not grateful and who doesn't have a bent towards generosity, and you ask them who would give to something like this, they're almost always going to say, oh, nobody's going to give to that. You need to go ask Jeff Bezos. You need to go ask the pharmaceutical company. You need to go ask Walmart, because nobody wants to give like that. And they're, those people will project, right? Well, the problem is if you're at a university or at a nonprofit and you've got a leader who may be one of those people, or at the very least may not have the experience, they're going to project their expectations. That dean that I was talking to you about, generous guy, but was projecting his own stuff. Now, the follow up to that story actually is dean number two. Um, he ended up having an opportunity to document like an 8-figure planned gift, and he decided that would be too pushy, that would be too private of a conversation to have, too personal. And so he said, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to press that guy. Just so happens that dean had his own planned gift uh, to his alma mater. And he actually made a point of telling me, I'm not telling them what I'm doing. I'm not going to tell them what the plan is, how much it is. I'll let them find that out after I'm gone. Well, well, a development officer working for him ended up talking with that individual with the 8-figure planned gift and ended up booking it, despite what the dean told them. So it's just, that's the thing. And what I'd recommend to all of you doing, if you're a CEO, you need to take a long look at your heart and ask yourself, what am I projecting on other people? And if you're a development officer in this conversation right now, you need to have a direct conversation with your CEO. Call out the elephants in the room. What assumptions are you bringing to fundraising? What attitudes about philanthropy is coloring the way you see our work? Direct conversation, thoughtful conversation like that, as long as people are open to it, it can be really beneficial.
Thank you so much. That was very good information, all about building that network and leveraging your network, utilizing your board. So important.
Thanks, Thomas. Well, if there aren't any other questions, is this where we close things up, Thomas? Great. Well, I want to thank everyone again for coming out today. It's been a real privilege to be able to speak with you and share with you from my personal experiences. Take care and God bless. Now, if you've enjoyed this podcast, please be sure to subscribe and give us a 5-star rating on your podcast provider. I'm your host, Tom Dauber. Thank you for joining me as we journey together towards major gift mastery on the Abundant Vision Fundraising Podcast.